Michael says, ooh, this is a good question, Michael. Michael says, is a repeated premise as an answer choice on a necessary assumption question necessarily wrong? What do you guys think? You guys are going to be surprised. Yeah. Actually, yeah, Dean, I'm glad that this got brought up, because the analysis on a necessary assumption question is simple. Which one does the author have to agree with? And if they're restating a premise of the argument, or if they're restating the conclusion of the argument, not only is it necessarily incorrect, it's necessarily the answer. If it really literally is a restatement of a premise, then the author has to agree that it's true. And if the author has to agree that it's true, then that's the answer on a necessary assumption question. You guys are wrong if you look at a necessary assumption question and think, oh, it has to be missing from the argument. That is not the correct analysis. That is the correct analysis on a sufficient assumption question. Which one will bridge the gap between a premise and a conclusion? And on a sufficient assumption question, if they restate the premise or if they restate a conclusion, well, that's not gonna plug the gap in the argument. But on a necessary assumption question, it's not about filling in the missing piece. On a necessary assumption question, it's just simply, which one does the author have to agree with? And you would not be wrong if you decided that necessary assumption questions and must be true questions were just basically the same thing. So there are plenty of examples of necessary assumption questions where it really feels like the correct answer turns out to just be a restatement of the conclusion. But if it's a restatement of the conclusion, then the author has to agree that it's true. If it's a restatement of the conclusion, then if this thing is false, it will cause the argument to fail. So a restatement of a premise or a restatement of the conclusion could absolutely be the correct answer on a necessary assumption question. You guys might find in the Demon some written explanations where I actually got that wrong. I have continued to learn about the LSAT. Teaching is one of the best ways to learn. And because I've done so much LSAT teaching, I've continued to learn a lot about the LSAT. But some of those old explanations, you might hear me say something like, oh, well, this can't be the answer because they already said that. That's bad analysis. There is some other reason why that's not the answer. And if you ever run into that in the Demon, if you ever run into that in the written explanations, that's my bad. And you can go ahead and hit the ask button, and Jackson and Claire and company will correct that for you, because that is not the correct analysis for a necessary assumption question. Yeah, Michael, there are totally questions where I read it and I go, well, wait a second, that answer choice is the conclusion of the argument. And if that's the case, then yes, that's the answer for a necessary assumption question.